All right, folks, welcome here to the Open Mic program here on the Sports Talk Nation. We got a great show for you today. We're going to preview the 2017 Miami Dolphins. And you know what? The Dolphins have been in the news lately here because of the Jay Cutler situation. No one, of course, expected Ryan Tannehill to go down with the knee injury. He's going to have surgery. Most likely will be out for the rest of the season. And now the Dolphins find themselves in a situation where they are bringing in, that's right, Jay Cutler. That's where the same guy who retired in the offseason because he had nowhere to go, because no one seemed to want him. Retired, decided to go into a broadcasting career at Fox, now does a total 180, and now decides to come back, pull a Brett Favre, and he will decide to play for the Miami Dolphins this year, and most likely will be the starter. This to the chagrin of one Matt Moore. So it's a controversial decision, a decision by the Dolphins that I'm not really crazy about, and I don't know if it's really going to help them in the long term. But we do have a great guest coming up here, folks, in just a couple of minutes, and that is Michael Hernandez. He writes for Dolphins Report on Scout.com, and he covers the Dolphins extensively on that website throughout the course of the NFL season. So he'll be joining us. So the Dolphins, who had playoff expectations this year, folks, this was a team that thought they could compete for a wild card in the AFC, and now those plans could change. We'll see. It's a very talented team they have here in 2017. If Adam Gase can get this team rolling, then he could be a Coach of the Year candidate in the NFL. So we'll find out right now. Let's get ready for our guest. Joining us now is Michael Hernandez. He writes about the Dolphins on Scout.com. Mike, how you doing?
Hey, man. How you doing? I'm doing great. I'm eating my Chick-fil-A sandwich. I'm feeling good.
Awesome. So, Mike, before we get into the Dolphins here, just tell me more about what you do on Scout.com. I also see you're also in radio down there in Miami.
Yeah, right now I have my own podcast right now, but I haven't done it in a while because I wanted to focus more on writing for Scout.com. Mm-hmm. What I basically try to do is go to training camp practices, review practices, take notes on the practices, and also write some opinionated pieces for Scout on my free time.
Okay, so that sounds fantastic. Because I know that I do stuff on Scout.com as well, right, for the New York Mets on there, and had a great opportunity earlier this year. Got a chance to interview Noah Syndergaard at a event in New York. So Scout.com is just awesome. It's really a great opportunity.
Yes, it is. I was actually up in Canton, Ohio, over the weekend for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I got to interview Dolphins Hall of Famer Jason Taylor in there.
Oh, man.
That was pretty cool, too. Great opportunity.
Did you get a chance to interview him?
Yes, I did.
That is awesome. I mean, he was a great player. I mean, the amount of chaos that he created on the field for opposing offenses each and every single year was he was just top notch. He really was.
Yeah, he really was, and he's such a class act too. Like, that was my first time ever going to a major event like that. Mm-hmm. And whenever you would ask him a question, he looks you straight in the eye. He talks to you like a nice person. He handled his whole career with class. Mm-hmm. Like, just on and off the field.
Yeah, it really was. And I know, when he came up here in New York, Jet fans over the years, like, oh yeah, Jason Taylor, we're not crazy about him because that's just the mentality they have here in New York. When he came here for that one season in New York, I think the fans really began to see what Miami fans knew all those years. This guy's a good guy on the field, good guy off the field. Even though it was at the end of his career, he did have that one big game against Pittsburgh during the regular season for them. So he is certainly much more well-liked in New York than he was before, but just a fantastic, fantastic Miami Dolphins player all time.
Yeah, I remember the first Dolphins game I ever watched was him. It was back in 2000, the Midnight Miracle, I think it was called. Mm-hmm. And he was, the Dolphins were beating the crap out of the New York Jets. Mm-hmm. I think it was like 24-0 at halftime, and Jason Taylor was blowing kisses to all the fans that were leaving. And then, I was like 12 years old at the time, so I had to go to bed, at a bedtime. And then the next morning I wake up thinking the Dolphins are going to win, and I was reading in the paper that they lost. I was like, oh no, how did this happen? And then I walked to school, and everybody made fun of me. It was terrible.
Oh my God! It's kind of funny because I remember watching that game here up here in the New York area, and I went to bed. It was 30-7. And I'm thinking, yeah, this game's over. There's no way the Jets are going to have a chance here. I had school the next day as well, and then for whatever reason, I just kept the radio on. It was I don't know why I was doing it. It was just something I just wanted to do. I just kept the radio on, and then I hear the Jets are starting to do something. They get a touchdown, 30-13. I'm like, okay, that's nice. And then they make it 30-20. I'm like, wait a minute, now it's a 10-point game. So I get up, I actually go into the living room. My father actually comes into the living room as well, and we just turn on and watch this epic finish for the Jets anyway. And it was just a crazy, crazy game. I don't think I got much sleep that night, but whatever.
I'm getting devastated just reliving it. I'm trying to, you try to replay back in your mind about how they came back and won that game, and you're just, you just can't comprehend it. Like there's no way to make sense of it. It's terrible.
But really,
I actually told Jason over the weekend that after I was done interviewing him, I told him I was watching him since I was a 12-year-old kid, and I knew he was going to cry because he's always been a very passionate player. Mm-hmm. But so asking him if he was going to cry wasn't really, that wasn't really a question for me. But I told him that I was going to cry before he does. I totally did.
That is fantastic. Think about when you think about those defenses, man, they had a lot of good players. I mean, you had Zach Thomas, obviously Jason Taylor, Patrick Surtain. I mean, a lot of guys were that was an underrated defense back then, man. It really was.
They were loaded, and the guy who doesn't get any credit was Tim Bowens. Mm-hmm. He was the nose tackle for the team, and all he did was occupy double teams. He didn't get a lot of stats, but what they liked about him is that he just couldn't move him. He was just a wall. Yeah. So he occupy double team, free up blocks on Zach Thomas, and Zach Thomas would just go to the line, make tackles in the backfield, quarterback sacks, whatever he needed.
And that team was phenomenal. It really was for a really long time, and I think it was just kind of unfortunate they just couldn't. It was just kind of the way that division was back then. Everyone was really, really close. There really wasn't one dominant team in the AFC East back then, so everyone was kind of beating up on each other. But, still, those Dolphin teams were phenomenal. Now, this year's version of the Dolphins, coming off of a 10-6 season last year, they get into the playoffs, and expectations were obviously very high for this team. But it just seems like this happens all the time in the NFL, where a team comes into another season, a new season with high expectations, and then a couple injuries happen, and then all of a sudden the perception changes. And I guess you could say that's the case here with Tannehill going down with the knee injury. You also have Jay with the concussion. It looks like he could be out until maybe he could be out for a little bit. He may come back soon, but injury is not a good thing here early in camp for the Dolphins.
Yeah, no, it's not. Coming in after last season. Well, let me just start by saying I've always been a huge Tannehill critic, because I've seen his limitations. He's not the type of quarterback to carry the offense by passing all the time. Like, he needs a run game to help him out. And you saw that last year when the Dolphins decided to run the ball like 20-plus times a game and let him throw when they needed to. Like, you saw the offense move more efficiently than any time during the Philbin era. And then coming into the season, and towards the end of the season, the back half of the season, you saw Tannehill start to process things quicker. They changed from like more of a run-heavy offense to more, a little bit more balanced. And he was making deep throws all over the place. He was one of the better deep ballers last year. And then coming into the season, watching him in training camp, it looked like he was, he was reading the field quicker, going through his progressions, and everything looked good. But every time he scrambled in practice, I always bit my lip and braced myself because I had a feeling that knee was not going to hold up. And and every single practice he would scramble around, and I was like, why can't they just take it a little bit easier with this guy? I know they say his knee's fine and everything, but I saw him move enough. I don't need to see him move every single time in practice. And it's funny because last Thursday, the moment I flew up to Canton, Ohio, and the moment I landed in Cleveland, that's when Tannehill hurt himself. So it was like a Cleveland curse. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's all LeBron James's fault. I blame him now.
Yeah. It's just Cleveland curse, man. And then in that practice, I think Ted Larson got like a biceps injury too. So just pandemonium started happening to the Dolphins, and it's all my fault. No. I should have never went to Cleveland. I mean, I know that better than as a Miami fan. So
maybe if you detoured to Cincinnati instead, or maybe even Columbus, Ohio, maybe that would have made a difference. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Oh.
But, you know...
But, so now they got Jay Cutler now, and I just came back from practice, and Jay Cutler looked good. You know, he didn't get a lot of reps in 11-on-11 scrimmage, but, you know, during warm-ups, you know, he passed with the receivers. They looked, you know, his passes looked on target. It looked like he was loosening up, and then once he got going, he started throwing the ball a little bit harder, and all his passes were on point. He had a couple of deep ones. He had a deep ball one-on-one to Jakeem Grant, who beat some coverage, and he had another one on one-on-one to tight end Julius Thomas, who beat one-on-one coverage too. So those are basically his highlights. But as far as the 11-on-11, he only got maybe a handful of reps, maybe 10 reps or so. You know, he didn't really do much there, but he's still learning the playbook.
You know, it reminds me a little bit of the Brett Favre situation in those few years when he came to New York and then went to Minnesota, where, you know, misses minicamp, retires, doesn't sound like he's going to come back, then changes his mind and comes back in the first week of camp. And I remember he didn't get any opportunities to play in those first preseason games. I'd imagine Jay Cutler's probably going to sit most of this preseason game. If he probably won't even suit for this preseason game, I would be shocked if he does. But you know, it's a really tough situation to go from when you haven't had any real minicamp, haven't had any real formal training. I know you had those controversial comments the other day where you said, well, you know, I'm a quarterback, I don't need to work out, basically. You know, I don't know if that's going to go.
I probably agree with him. I probably agree with him.
Yeah. Yeah, but still, I mean, it's
you know, he needs to get back in the cardiovascular shape. You know,
he needs to get back to football shape. I mean, really, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how he handles this transition because, you know, the one question I would have for him, I'm sure a lot of reporters ask this, is, you know, how were you always sure that you really wanted to retire? You know, were you training on the side? What were you doing during that time? Because it seems like to me that he always had this in the back of his mind that he wanted to come back at some point, that he really wasn't sold on going to Fox full time.
Yeah. Well, the thing I've always Jay Cutler always I know he's on the Dolphins now, and I root for the Dolphins and everything, but you know, going back to 2008, the first time I ever saw Jay Cutler play was against the Dolphins, and Chad Pennington was the quarterback for the Dolphins. And I saw Jay Cutler make some head-scratching interceptions, coverage, things that he should have saw that he didn't, and he threw the ball anyway and would get picked off. And leading up into that game that year, everybody was raving about Jay Cutler and how great he was and everything, and I just shook my head and I was like, this guy throws dumb interceptions. And that's been the knack on him for the rest of his career. So, I get it. I get why Gates signed him. You know, they have history. He was successful. He knows Jay Cutler's limitation. And I just, you know, when they were in Chicago, they would just run the ball, more often than they would pass it. I think Gates saw that Cutler's kind of prone to turnovers, so let's run the ball more often than not. And I hope they do the same thing here.
Well,
signing him for $10 million. I mean, really, what's the difference? I mean, between going into the season with Matt Moore or Jay Cutler, the Dolphins are in the Super Bowl. They're only expected the over/under on them is 7.5 to Las Vegas. So, what, you're going to win? You're either going to win 7 to 10 games with Ryan Tannehill, or you're going to win 7 to 10 games with Jay Cutler, or you're going to win 7 to 10 games with Matt Moore. Why don't you just go in the season with Matt Moore, save $10 million off the salary cap, and just wait it out until next season and get back on track with Tannehill.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I feel bad for Matt Moore because I remember when he's got a chance to start for this team a few years ago before they drafted Tannehill. I thought he was pretty good. I know they went 6-6 in his 12 starts, 13 starts, whatever it was, but I thought he did a decent job. And I always thought he kind of got the short end of the stick when they drafted Tannehill. And now he gets the short end of the stick again here, where they bring in Jay Cutler when, like you just said, they really didn't need to make this move. They have enough talent on both sides of the ball. If they can get some guys back healthy, that they can win 7-8 games, get to 8-8. And look, no one's beating the Patriots in this division. New England's going to win their 12-13 games. We all know that. So the idea is just being good enough to maybe sneak into that 6th seed, into that wild card.
Yeah, and then but that's the thing. It's so what? We're most likely the Dolphins aren't going to go further than that. I mean, Matt Moore, And like you said, I totally agree with you because I always feel bad for him because whenever he had to fill in, he would win. He would do a pretty good job. Like, I know he's physically limited, like his accuracy fluctuates, he doesn't have the best arm, but his IQ's there, and he's proven that he could step up and win you some games when needed to. And also, I mean, just off the top of my head, I don't know if I'm correct or not, but I think he's one of the higher paid backup quarterbacks in the league. So why pay him that much to fill in when your quarterback goes down if you're not even going to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the exact. Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure what the exact number is on his payroll, but you know, I look at his numbers, career numbers: 59% completion percentage. He has more touchdowns than interceptions. He doesn't turn the ball over. Pretty decent quarterback rating. I don't know. I would have given this guy a chance. I mean, look what he even in a playoff game, he still threw for nearly 300 yards in a blowout loss to Pittsburgh. He still played
a lot of people want to blame. A lot of people want to blame that more for that playoff game, but dude, like, I mean, the guy just got strip sacked. I mean, you know, he's rolling around trying to make a play, and he got strip sacked in the red zone a couple times. I mean, I wouldn't say that's necessarily his fault. It's not like he was throwing a lot of dumb picks. I mean, I know he had maybe one in the middle of the game, but I mean, you still drove the Dolphins down the field. They still had a chance until those strip sacks happened. So, but yeah, man. As far as you know, in the Cutler signing also affects Jarvis Landry's extension. I mean, the Dolphins had before they signed Jay Cutler, they had like $18 million in cap space, and now, I mean, and then once they signed Jay Cutler, that's $10 million off the $18 million. So they have like $8 million left for this season in cap space, according to Spot Track and Over the Cap. So you can't really extend Jarvis Landry for $8 million this year if you want to give him an extension. And then if you wait to the off season, you're going to get an additional $3 million from 2018. So you're going to have $11 million. And yeah, you could extend Jarvis Landry for $11 million a year or whatever it is, but you also won't have enough money for free agency or to sign your draft class. So it really affects that. And people on Facebook and on social media can hate on me for saying that. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I mean, those are the facts. Unless they make some big cuts like cutting Byron Maxwell, you get $10 million off the books there. And then if you cut Mike Pouncey, I think you could get like 7 more off the books. But if they don't cut those guys, like you're going to be very limited in cap space for this coming off season.
Absolutely, and you know, another part of that question is going to be now the quarterback position too. And I know we're talking a lot about that as here to start this, but you know, the question is going to be about Tannehill. You know, do the Dolphins want to trust him being their long-term future now? Having a knee injury at the end of last season, missing all of this season presumably. I mean, now that position becomes a question mark, especially if they have a bad year here under Jay Cutler.
Yeah, next year I think this is the last year. Like they can't cut Tannehill this year,
right?
Because I think he has a huge dead cap penalty. It's probably like 20-something million or something. But I think the next year it's lower to about $4 million. Like me personally, from what I saw leading up to this point, I thought Tannehill looked good. I thought he was growing as a quarterback. You saw him take more of a leadership role in training camp this season. Like he was more vocal. You know, he showed command. You know, he knew where the receivers should be. You know, he saw him process the field quicker. Like he had a lot of growth coming into him, which I never saw before. So I mean, I still want to give Tannehill another shot, maybe another year, see what he does. Because leading up to the season, it would if his knee injury held up and he was able to go into the season healthy, like it would lead to almost certain statistical success for Tannehill. Because, he played, him and the offensive line played so bad starting off the season with that 1-4 start in 2016. But, Tannehill is the better side of average for me. Like, Jay Cutler is the bizarro Tannehill because of all the intangibles that you like about Tannehill, his work ethic, he says the right things, he's a team guy, he doesn't really turn over the ball that much. Jay Cutler's a total opposite. He's known as the poor locker room guy, the poor media guy. Nobody likes him. He kills you with the dumb interception. like it's the better side of average and the worst side of average to me. But
yeah. Now you brought up the contract. I pulled up the Dolphins roster here with all their contract numbers here, and the obviously one guy that stands out for me as far as big contracts going forward is going to be Ndamukong Suh. It's about $17 million into him next year, about $19 million to him the following year in 2019. Do the Dolphins try to restructure this contract, try to make some cap space for some of those guys like you mentioned, like Landry Jones?
I mean, I think they could, but I mean, as far as what I've heard down here, there's not much going on about something like that. But I do know that when they signed into that contract, it was totally unheard of at the time. Like it was a ridiculous contract, $20 million for a defensive tackle. That's quarterback money. Yeah. And he's not a defensive end, so like everybody said that like he would come in here and get a whole bunch of sacks and buzz through the line. I kept trying to temper people's expectations because defensive tackles aren't the ones who are supposed to get sacks. Like he'll stuff the run and stuff like that, but and maybe get like maybe 8 sacks a year, but you can't expect a defensive tackle to just disrupt everything on every single play. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It was unheard of, but it set the market for new defensive tackles like Aaron Donald.
They did.
Didn't be expected to get that much.
Mm-hmm.
Good for Ndamukong Suh. He's a pioneer.
Yeah, he is. He is, and the player, the couple players that I want to also touch on here, Jay Ajayi, and also they had the injury to the center. What do you think the situation is here with Jay Ajayi? From what you've seen down there, he has the concussion. I read somewhere this morning that he could be on his way to coming back soon. What have you heard?
Yeah, I think it was last week when he first got the concussion. I was there at the practice. It was the Dolphins' first practice in full pads, and Ajayi came up the gut and just got waxed by T.J. McDonald. McDonald gave him a little Happy Meal delivery there, and after that, Ajayi was Ajayi got up on his own, but he was a little slow to get up, and then soon afterwards, the trainers and him walked to the locker room. So far, today was his first day back at practice, and he did some warm-ups with the team and everything. He was dressed for practice. He had his shorts on, he had his shoulder pads on, but he didn't do any contract drills. He didn't participate in scrimmage. Kenyon Drake got the start today, but that shouldn't say much because Damian Williams was also missing there. But yeah, soon afterwards, he took out the shoulder pads and he was just kind of held out on the sideline there. Rumor has it he's not going to be performing in the Thursday night preseason game.
Yeah, I would imagine
he's still somewhat in concussion protocol.
Yeah, I would imagine that they're going to sit him out for a while here, and I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see him until at least the third preseason game here. The good news, at least, is that they're hoping that this could be an injury or a situation that he can get past before the regular season. It's so tricky with these concussions, especially in football now with this CTE stuff that's going around. These teams have to be extra careful now with the way they handle these players.
Yeah, usually during the season, I think what the protocol is that if they don't pass the concussion protocol that upcoming week, they'd have to skip a game and then play in the following game. I mean, it all depends. Everybody's situation is different. But, I mean, the good news is that you already know what you have in Jay Ajayi. You don't really need to play him during the off-season if you don't want to. Like, just let him heal up. I mean, you got time. You haven't even played the first preseason game yet. You know what you have. I mean, it could be, I mean, not to say it could be worse, but, it could be, shoulder injury or knee injury or something that, might take even longer to recover from. Like, I mean, the concussion looks, I don't know, it looks somewhat minor. It wasn't like he was knocked out on the ground or anything. I mean, concussions are serious and everything, but you're just lucky it's a minor one and something that he's going to shake off eventually. And I think he'll be fine. I think he'll come back soon.
Yeah, he will, and once he comes back, he's going to take a lot of pressure off this offense. I think, he's a very good running back. almost 1,300 yards last year. So to have him back in the fold here by the time we get to the regular season, very important. Also very important for the way this new quarterback's going to manage this offense, because I think it's going to be a lot of J.J., especially early in the year.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what I want. I mean, that's what I want the Dolphins to do, because I know Cutler will turn it over the ball, so they're going to need to lean heavily on the run. Maybe not so much as heavily as they might need to with Matt Moore, but, you know, it's nice to know that Jay Cutler has a weapon. You know, he's got a good running back. He's got Devontae Parker, Jarvis Landry, Kenny Stills as receivers. The O-line looks solid. I remember in the 2016 offseason, the first, maybe like the first week of practices or so, the Dolphins' offensive line just looked terrible. Like, they couldn't hold up. They were getting the best beat by the defensive line. But at least so far in training camp, like, you know, the offensive line looks solid. It doesn't look perfect, but the interior of the line is holding up. They got some solid, you know, guards there, which are kind of like a bunch of nobodies.
Mm-hmm.
Craig Urbick was the Steelers' third-round pick. He was on the Buffalo Bills for a while. And, you know, they got him at center. He's rotating with Jake Brendel and Anthony Steen. So those guys are kind of solid guards, too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'll hold up.
Mm-hmm.
The tackle position's a little tricky sometimes, but, you know, the Dolphins on the other side, they got Wake and Harris and Branch rushing in. So those are three talented guys. But I think the O-line will be able to hold up.
How explosive do you think this offense can be? Because I think one of the knocks on Tannehill was that, you know, he wasn't a guy who always throw the ball deep, or at least consistently. And you got a lot of guys who can break deep. Landry, Parker, Stills. I mean, how potent can this offense be if it's all clicking well this year?
I thought it was going to click a lot better with Tannehill. Like, he's the one that you could at least run a balanced offense with, because you know, he limits his turnovers. He never really throws a dumb interception. I mean, the only interceptions I ever see him throw are ones that, you know, goes off a receiver's hands and then gets caught by somebody else. But I thought it would be more balanced with Tannehill. I mean, right now, I mean, it's hard to say, because Matt Moore, you know, he's on and off in practice. Like, sometimes he looks great, and then, like today was one of the days where he just couldn't really get anything going. Jay Cutler only had like a handful of reps today, so it's hard to say what he can do, but maybe give it another week, I might have a better idea. But, you know, the Dolphins definitely have some talent, though. I mean, Devontae Parker was stepping it up. He's more consistent. He looks a lot faster and healthier than he's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, you know, in the past he's been held, you know, in and out of practice, but so far this offseason he's in every single one, and he looks good. And I think his favorite route might be the slant, because every time I do catch the slant, he's gone. So
wow,
he looks good. I
mean, I remember in the few games I saw this offense. I mean, these guys are fast. I mean, they just it's like a track meet out there. And then when they get underneath and past the corner, goodbye. I mean, they're really just that good. So it can be a very explosive offense. It really can be. I'd be very curious again, like we've been talking about, to see how it's going to change here with the quarterback situation. But if they all get on the same page, you know what? This has a chance to be still a pretty explosive offense this year.
Yeah, and Jay Cutler looked really good on the deep ball today.
Mm-hmm.
He got some touch, so maybe him, Stills, or maybe him and Parker can dial up something here and there. I mean, he was on point. He was on target. He didn't look that rusty.
Mm-hmm.
He just needs to learn the place and the terminology. Gate said.
Mm-hmm.
Gate said the biggest adjustment that Cutler needs to make this offseason is to learn the terminology, because I guess it's changed since he was in Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Let's just quickly flip it over to the other side of the ball here. Defensively, you obviously have Cameron Wake. We talked about Sue. Andre Branch, a guy who kind of goes under the radar, had 5.5 sacks last year. This group can rush the passer. Of course, Wake is one of the best, more premier pass rushers in this game. But, you know, what do you like about this defense coming in? Do you like what they have secondary? Do you think it starts with the secondary, or do you think it really starts with this pressure that they have up front?
It's actually a combination of both. Like the first week of practice, no, it was the first day of practice. I'm sorry. The first day of practice, the defensive line was good. Their edge rushers were getting there, but Tannehill and the receivers were kind of tearing up the secondary. But that kind of changed the next day because then David Howard was back at practice, and him combined with Byron Maxwell and the safeties that they have there now, like they've been shutting that offense down. Like they've been shutting that passing attack down ever since like the second day of practice. Like the offense, like they'll get their throws in here and there, but as far as going down the field in the scrimmage, they have a tough time. That secondary looks really good. You got Maxwell, Lippett, Howard. You got Bobby McCain as a block corner. Raekwon McMillan's playing middle linebacker. You got Kiko Alonso on the weak side. You got Lawrence Timmons on the strong side, and then you got safeties Rashad Jones and Nate Allen, who look pretty good, and DJ McDonald. Like that guy's a hard hitter. Like they have a lot of talent on that secondary, and I don't think it gets recognized enough.
He really doesn't. I mean, a lot of people always talk about Wake, they talk about Sue, and they really don't talk about some of the other guys in this defense. But, you mentioned Kiko Alonso. The guy is all over the field. I mean, he's in on every single play. He makes plays in the passing game. He obviously makes plays against the running game. I mean, the guy is just all over the place. I mean, true leader of this defense in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I saw Tannehill back when he was healthy. He's like still longer ago now. But there was one practice when Tannehill he dropped back and he tried to throw over Kiko Alonso. And Kiko Alonso, he must have left like 3 feet into the air and like high pointed the football and came down with it. He's had, I mean, off the top of my head, I know I missed a handful of practices when I was in Canton, but I mean, I've seen the guy pick off the ball like 3 or 4 times and stuff. Lawrence Timmons looks like a beast too. That guy's huge. I saw him pop J.J. I mean, people question Lawrence Timmons' pass coverage ability coming to the Dolphins, but I mean, he looked good so far.
He was always a good player. I mean, you got a guy coming from that Pittsburgh defense. I mean, he was always good. I always thought he was pretty good back then. He's going to add.
No, he is.
He's going to add even more depth now, so he's going to be great.
Yeah, he was my favorite offseason addition because the Dolphins have been needing linebackers for forever. Ever since like 2013 when they got rid of Carlos Dansby and Cameron Burnett, like people complained that those guys couldn't cover, but man, those guys stopped the run, and then they replaced them with Nell Ellerby and Philip Wheeler, and those guys couldn't do it. They couldn't stop the pass or the run. And the Dolphins rushed defense just fell year after year after year, and I've been screaming for a linebacker the past couple of seasons. They finally got one.
And you got him in the prime. And you got him in his prime too, which is even better.
Yeah. And then so Simmons. I mean, he's an older veteran, but you know that like he's only missed one game in like the past like 6 years or so. And he's always been getting like 100-something tackles a season, so you know what you got with him. He's a great player. He can still play. He hasn't fallen off the bit.
Yeah, it's a defense that I think is going to create a lot of problems for people. And you know what? I know that, again, looking at this division, I don't expect much from the Jets. They're looking at 3-13 and 1-15. They say they're not tanking the season, but to everyone else, we all know they are tanking the season. They are. They're trying to get that number 1 pick. Buffalo is a weird situation, as we've seen here with the changing the general manager in the middle of the offseason during minicamp. Very weird situation there. I'm not a big. I don't know about you, but I'm not a big buyer in Tyrod Taylor at all. I never have been.
Look, I'm not completely sold on Tyrod Taylor. Like, I don't think he's necessarily a franchise quarterback, but he's the best they have. I mean, he performs pretty admirably, the last couple seasons. I mean, he doesn't turn over the ball. They lean on the run. He makes plays with his arm. He's got a good deep ball. Like, he doesn't hurt the team. He just facilitates the game and he makes plays when they need to. I think he's a solid quarterback. I don't know why they hate on him so much, but I'm not sure what the contract situation is with him. I know they made him play out a season a year ago or so, and then they gave him like a huge contract or something, like 20-something million. I mean, I could be wrong. But, I mean, I think they're in good hands with him. I don't know why they make it seem like it's a quarterback competition every year. I mean, he's clearly the best they have.
He is, and plus when you have Shady McCoy back there, it makes things a little bit easier. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how McDermott runs this because, again, it's another defensive head coach. We'll see how this offense is going to run. Maybe McDermott will have more say in that offense than Rex Ryan ever did. Rex is just that kind of coach where he just takes over a team and says, I'm going to coach my defense, I'll leave my offense to whoever's the offensive coordinator, and just never works out. I'm very curious to see how Buffalo's going to be. I mean, Buffalo could be like a team that could be anywhere like 8-8, or they could be like 4-12. That's just the kind of sense I get with Buffalo this year.
Yeah, you never know. But they always play the Dolphins pretty tough. But yeah, man. I mean, it's going to be the Patriots. Obviously,
yeah.
They're considered to win the Super Bowl, and even talks about them going like 19-0 have happened. And then I think it's pretty clear the Dolphins might be the second best team. And then you got the Bills, and then you got the Jets on the bottom.
You got the Jets sitting there on the bottom, waiting for 2018. They're winning now.
Yeah, they're waiting for Sam Darnold, who might not even come out for the draft.
Oh my God! Can you imagine if the Jets go 1-15 and you got all these Jet fans going, "Oh, yeah, we're gonna get Sam Darnold," and then he comes out like before the Bowls start, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna stay here for another year or two."
That would sum up like that.
That would just sum everything up for them. But yeah, I agree with you. It's going to be the Patriots division. Tom Brady, obviously one of the best of all time. They add, if not the best of all time. You got, of course, an offense that is going to be even better. They've added to that. So Patriots are going to be on top of this division. Like I said, 12, 13 wins. And for Miami, I think it's just about trying to get through this training camp, try to stay healthy, try to get Jay Cutler caught up with this offense, and maybe they can make some kind of play. They have enough talent. We already talked about it for on both sides of the ball to make some kind of move to be competitive. And I think it's going to be a big year for Adam Gase. Second year is always a tough year for these young head coaches. It really is.
We're really to see how much magic Gase has now that he has a different quarterback again. This is going to be the third quarterback that's going to be starting for him eventually. Yeah, Tannehill, he's got more, now he's got Cutler, and if he could work magic with all three of those guys, that guy's obviously a QB guru. So,
what kind of coach is he? I mean, how does he come off down there? I mean, he seems like kind of a quiet guy from what I've seen, at least nationally anyway.
Yeah, he's kind of quiet. Like, he's not the happy-go-lucky coach in the media, but he is very honest, and that's what you like about him. Like, in the past with maybe Toronto and Philbin, they would always kind of answer on questions with their politically correct answers. Anything controversial, they'd dance around it or whatever. But Adam Gase, he's just a real man. Like, that guy is not afraid of controversy. Like last year when he said that Devontae Parker needed to step up, he told the media he wasn't afraid of it. When he had to bench Byron Maxwell, and people questioned about that, he told me he wasn't playing good. He had to bench him. The guy, he's completely honest with everything. I think that's why the media likes him, because no one's getting honest, answers with substance. Like whatever's happening behind the scenes, he'll tell. He doesn't care. But and I also like him because he's just he believes in situational play calling. He just believes, he knows what his players' limitations are. He knows what their strengths are, and he always tries to play to that. I mean, he saw that the offensive line was really bad last year in the beginning, and he started running the ball instead of passing it so much, and he cut the backfield down from 4 running backs to 1 or 2, and Jay Johnny and Damian Williams, they just took off. The Dolphins only had maybe 30 sacks that season compared to all the other seasons in this building. When Tannehill was getting sacked maybe 40 plus times a season. So, I mean, I don't know. I love Adam Gase. I totally believe in him. They use free agency the right way. They don't overpay anymore. They're trying to build through the draft. Everything that they're doing is great, except for the Jay Cutler signing, which I hate. I mean, it's smart. It's smart. I'm not going to totally hate on it. It's a nice short-term fix, but I think with I think if you save $10 million, that could go more towards your future and your playmakers. I mean, you might have to give early extensions to J.J. and Devontae Parker this offseason, unless you want to wait till the offseason when they're going to be free agents. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be very interesting. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but they can't do a franchise tag on Landry, correct? Or they could?
That's the question. I've been trying to figure out that one, because if they only have like $8 million in cap space now, how can you franchise a player for around $15 million? It's only $8 million left in cap space. I'm not really sure how that works. But that's why I'm waiting for the FLPA to process Cutler's contract, and we'll see where we're at after that. So might take a couple days.
Might take a couple days. That's going to be very interesting to see how that builds out, because if they get a little more cap room, maybe they can find a way to finagle that a little bit. But that's going to be interesting.
From what I understand, if teams make contracts that go over the cap, like the NFL has to review all those contracts. And if they see that it's going over the cap and they can't do it, like the NFL doesn't allow those contracts to process. And then the team would have maybe another 7 days to come up with something that works, that plays with the cap. So.
Very, very interesting. Mike, this has been awesome.
I'm all ready.
Oh man, this has been great. So if to you it's a successful preseason, if what happens? I guess that's the last thing I got here.
What, a successful preseason?
Yeah, in your mind, what would be a successful preseason getting into the season for the Dolphins this year?
No injuries for one, and successful preseason. I would like to see Cutler move the ball and score a couple touchdowns with this offense. But, that's about it. I mean, that's all. I mean, it's always about quarterbacks in this league, right? I mean, we got to see if this new quarterback can perform and get adjusted with his new wide receivers and maybe learn to call some audibles. I don't even know if he's able to do that. I never got to see Tannehill call an audible, so even though he had the power to.
Oh, no one does audibles like Peyton Manning used to, where he just goes up and down a line screaming his head off.
But I know. It sucks. We'll never get to see Peyton do that anymore.
I know.
But another quarterback that I enjoy watching a lot with that is Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers does that stuff a lot during his games. I mean, I love Philip Rivers. I think he's great.
He is. Wouldn't it be awesome? Wouldn't it be awesome just to see him if on a team that can actually win a Super Bowl? And I don't know if San Diego's going to, I did it. I said San Diego. Los Angeles is going to do anything this year, but it'd just be nice to see him at some point in the next couple of years, whatever he's got left, to just get that chance, because Roethlisberger's got one, got a couple. Eli's got a couple. Man, it'd just be nice to see him get one.
The Chargers they're always on my list as the team that has a whole bunch of talent, but for whatever reason they always get hit with injuries or something, or just some weird season. It's almost like they're cursed. 2015, they had so many weapons, and Keenan Allen went down, and I think Danny Woodhead went down this past season, and Keenan Allen. It always just seems like injuries just hit them hard. And I don't know, man. Their season always takes. Plus, they got a buttload of talent. They got 2 good corners. If they could stay healthy, they're good. They drafted. They needed offensive line to help push that line, because they kept getting injured and they were a little inconsistent. And Melvin Gordon couldn't go anywhere. So in the draft, they drafted the 2 best guards in the draft, Forrest Lamp and Dan Sweeney. And then they have solid linebacker core. They got Melvin Ingram, pass rushing. They got Joey Bosa, pass rushing.
Mm-hmm.
They got safeties I really like, and Desmond King. And I think the other one is Rayshawn Jenkins from the U.
Mm-hmm.
So if Keenan Allen can stay healthy, I mean, Mike Williams is out now. See, there you go. That's some injury I'm talking about. So, I mean, if they had Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Tyrell Williams there, Melvin Gordon running and pass catching out of the backfield, I mean, that's a good offense.
It is, and if they can find a way to get a couple of those wins in that division, I mean, I don't know. I have very low expectations for Denver because of that quarterback situation. Obviously, Oakland's the class of that division right now, but I mean, if they can sneak out a couple of wins against Denver, Kansas City, maybe they can be in the mix a little bit.
Yeah, I think San Diego is the more well-rounded team. I like that. I love the Oakland Raiders. Like they're hot right now. But then I think San Diego would be maybe the second team in the division if they could just stay healthy. And then I think it might be Kansas City, and then I think the Broncos are at the bottom because the Broncos, I mean, their defense is great, but I don't believe in Trevor Siemian or Paxton Lynch right now, and they don't really have a good running back situation either. So, I mean, it's hard for me to buy into a team that doesn't really have a decent quarterback behind the line there.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. That's part of my hesitation with the Denver Broncos as well going into this year. I just don't buy it yet. I mean, maybe someone steps up here, as we get into the season. Maybe Simeon steps up or Paxton Lynch, but until I see it, I don't believe it. And I agree, Oakland's the class of that division. Kansas City's kind of strange because it seems like they're giving up on Alex Smith, but is it really all Alex Smith's fault? I don't know. And then so it's really kind of a battle between.
He's always been limited.
Yeah, he always has been. I've never been his biggest fan. Yeah.
Brent Andy Reid though, like when they took Alex Smith like a handful of years ago off the 49ers, like I was like, what is this guy doing? Alex Smith is awful, and then you just saw Alex Smith grow under Andy Reid and actually become an efficient quarterback. A quarterback that was voted into the NFL top 100 players a couple times. Over Ryan Tannehill. Like I always say that Tannehill has a better physical gifts, but Alex Smith, like he's got a good IQ. Like his physical limitations are there, but he's mobile and he's been throwing it downfield a little bit more in these upcoming years. But I mean, obviously they feel like they need someone a little bit better. But I don't think Patrick Mahomes is the answer.
Neither do I. I thought they wasted a draft pick myself.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember Mike Mayock during the draft was saying this guy reminds me of Jay Cutler. He's got physical tools, strong arm, but half of his tape's good and the other half of it's awful. And also his footwork is just garbage. Like it reminds me of Tebow. You know how Tebow had those terrible throwing mechanics where he would do that big windmill, wind up, and then release the ball. Like Patrick Mahomes, it's like the same with Patrick Mahomes' feet. Like I've never seen a quarterback have such bad footwork, and I know they want to coach it out of him, but I think it's going to be the same thing of kind of like what Tebow had, where you try to coach it out of them, but then when the lights are on and shots are being fired, that he's just going to resort to his bad instinct naturally. I mean, the guy's played like that for 20-something years, ever since he was a kid with bad footwork. I mean, you can't coach that out of him in one offseason.
Exactly, and sometimes the player just is who he is. I mean, they have to come to that reality as well. So, I'm not a big Mahomes guy either. Like I said, I don't even know why they used that draft pick on him at all. When they have a guy who's in Smith, who again I'm not a big fan of, but at least it gives him a chance to get into the playoffs. I don't know what you're going to get out of Patrick Mahomes.
I mean, he's going to sit for, at least a year. Do they need someone better? Yeah, but Alex Smith, he's not terrible. You know what I mean? He's just in the middle of the pack there with Tannehill. I don't know. It's so weird. He's just like a facilitator. A lot of their game is a lot of short, lateral stuff. Yeah, Travis Kelce's a big star there because Alex Smith has to rely on him because he runs those shorter patterns. And occasionally he'll bomb it now, but there was 2 or 3 seasons when he didn't even throw a wide receiver touchdown, right?
That's right. Yeah. Mike, I want to thank you, man, so much for coming on and doing this segment with the Dolphins. Really looking forward to seeing how they.
Anytime.
Hey, look.
I get put up with a lot of blind homers down here, so it's nice to talk football with someone who actually knows what they're talking about.
I appreciate that, man. Hey, look, when we get into the season and we start getting, going into the regular season, love to have you back on, man.
All right, cool, man. Thanks.
All right, thank you.